Now, last month you surprised many by, despite what the international models were saying, you were suggesting that we'd be pretty lucky to get average rainfall in July. You were talking a down rainfall for July. Spot on again. So, have the weather models got it wrong? Are we in now for a period of dry weather?
There's plenty of good news on the way in terms of the climate influences are still pushing towards a wetter conditions for spring. So there is rainfall on the way, it's just not as strong. We're not seeing strong pushes towards the sort of wet conditions, but it is heading in the right direction. So there's good news coming.
Can we take a look then at the two major drivers of our weather for the next 3 months at least? And I suppose, first of all, the Indian Ocean. And you've been suggesting that the Indian Ocean, there is going to be a negative IOD, Indian Ocean dipole, which should bring with it some wetter conditions. How do you see what's happening in the Indian Ocean? Are we going to get that Indian Ocean dipole forming?
So the Indian Ocean dipole, what you typically see with that is what we were hoping for is warm water off to the northwest of Australia, and what you typically see in the negative Indian Ocean dipole is the cool water near Africa. Now what's happened is it's warmed up in the over the last few weeks. Just very recently to northwest Australia and across the western side as well. So while we haven't gone into a negative IOD, we've still got that warm water sitting there to the northwest. So that supplies moisture. That can feed moisture down when we get that sort of right burst of tropical activity to feed it down over us. And that's really what we were missing through July, was the tropical activity that to push moisture down across us.
Okay, so the problem is it is warm on both sides of the Indian Ocean, and what we want is cooler water on the South African side, on the western side, and if it goes cool there and it's warm here, we get a dipole and we get rain.
Yeah, it's all starting to get a bit complicated for Saturday morning, but the key thing is, really the key thing is the warm water to the northwest, and we've got that now, so that's really important.
All right, so there's a potential for moisture there. Let's now take a look at the Pacific. That's the other area, and again, it's been struggling. The models have been suggesting there's a potential for La Nina, a wet one, forming, but it hasn't quite formed up until now. Again, could you give us an update there?
Yeah, so once again that's always looked pretty borderline, but it's still looking, and that's still very much the case. But this is heading in the right direction for La Nina is typically wetter conditions, particularly for the eastern states of Australia. And we've got warm water sitting around Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, that sort of area, and that's great for feeding moisture across the eastern half of the country. So that's sitting there as well. We're not seeing strong pushes. We're not seeing strong pushes in either of these influences. It's just pushing a little bit towards the right conditions for rainfall and cool and milder temperatures.
I always get excited when you say there's warm water, particularly to the northwest of Australia. Now we've got warm water to the northeast of Australia. So just before we leave the La Nina, often when you get a La Nina, it gets very wet along the eastern coast, and we don't get much of it here in South Australia. As it moves towards the La Nina, are we going to get our share of moisture? Just generally overall, we'll talk about individual months, but it does look like the eastern states will probably pick up a little bit more, and that'll extend through into summer. And so what that means is it's probably good news, because it means the rainfall will probably ease off a little bit towards the end of the year, so that's great
great for farmers looking for dry conditions for harvest and reduced fungal conditions for grape growers and that sort of thing in South Australia. So
I think we need to drill down month by month, and so many people are wanting to know what's going to happen in August. So take it away, Darren.
Yeah, okay. Lovely, beautiful first day of August. There's some nice weather in the next couple of days, and then we're moving that sort of pattern where we see more cold fronts coming further north over us. And so the first couple of days, not much rainfall, but then through about the third, through about mid-month, looks like we'll get regular streams of cold frontal activity, and even just a little bit of tropical activity pushing some of that moisture over us. So that second week of the month looks like we could pick up some really small rainfall that'll extend across the agricultural regions particularly that second week of August. So
do you mind if I butt in and say, will it be, the old inch of rain, 20 millimetres of rain might go across, and probably there are a lot of people saying, John, ask him, is it going to go inland a little bit?
So yeah, it does look like the agricultural areas will get some reasonable rainfall out of that. I think Adelaide, basically that's it, around the Adelaide sort of latitude and south, I think there's a pretty good chance of accumulating an inch of rainfall over that week or so there.
That's the bit. So our best bet's probably the mid-month. So if we take towards the end of the month, what's happening there?
Yeah, so it looks like the high pressure systems will re-establish through the third week of the month and through to close to the end of August. Then it looks like the cold fronts will kick in again, and so the end of the month we'll pick up some more rainfall at the end as well.
Right. Well, before we move into September, in terms of rainfall, we just need to take a little peek at temperatures, day temperatures, night temperatures for August.
So just really, all the temperatures are showing fairly close to average. So it'll, with the windy conditions, we'll have warmer nights through that second week, cooler nights and frosty nights in that third week. And but overall, it's looking like it'll end up close to average overall for both daytime and nighttime temperatures. Maybe slightly less than average for nighttime temperatures.
So might we get a typical average rainfall for August? I think there'll be some reasonable rainfall in there, but I suspect it might just struggle to come in a little bit. Might end up just a little bit below average overall with that sort of third week of the month. It's going to dampen down. It looks like the atmosphere is going to be quite suppressed through from about sort of mid-month. So it's going to really inhibit rainfall a bit. Time when it'd be great if it was kicking on a bit more. But that sort of it's going to be 10 days, and I think it's going to be shut down quite a bit. All eyes on that situation mid-month. Take us into September.
So September, I'm not able to much in the way of detail, but it does look like a wetter than average September. Not strongly so, and that's really typical. It's a really peak time of year for that warm water from moist air from the northwest to come down. So September, October is the peak time for that sort of influence. And that's what we're probably seeing in the rainfall amounts. It's a bit above average for September.
50 millimetres as our average for September, so let's hope we get it.
Yep. And near average temperatures again. And same sort of story for October, John. A bit above average for temperatures, a bit above average for rainfall. Not strongly so, but just tending that way. And near average for temperatures as well.
Okay, and 44 millimetres I think is our average for October, so again, fingers crossed. And that's an interesting situation. can you just take us into, you mentioned earlier on that perhaps because of what's happening in the Pacific Ocean and the La Nina, that it'll affect the eastern states but not so much South Australia later on as we move into harvest time. Will we get the showers continue, or might it sort of ease off a little bit and good harvesting weather?
It does look like it eases off for South Australia. On the eastern districts, it might pick up a little bit more because they're close to the Victorian border. Pick up a little bit more of that La Nina, borderline La Nina influence. It's not a strong wet signal for the eastern states, but it's there. And the eastern districts will probably pick up a little bit of that potentially.
The big concern, of course, is as we move towards the back end of September in particular into October, we've got lovely weather, good gardening weather, but we get a little spike of hot weather and upsets everything. What's the likelihood of heat spikes early in the season?
Temperatures look very average right through the year across all of South Australia, particularly and particularly the southern half where we are. So it all looks very, very average, which is typical for that sort of La Nina type of influence.
So
some hints there of hot January, but that's a long way off.
Yeah, no, we won't go into that stage. So from a gardening point of view, Darren, it looks like we're in for some really good gardening weather with plenty of moisture, or hopefully a reasonable moisture in springtime and not too hot too early in the season.
With weather conditions in spring, but fungal issues, you've always something you want to, just be prepared if it does start getting warm enough and warm enough that you start getting some fungal stuff kicking off. But otherwise it does look pretty good. Quite a bit of wind, but nice.
I suspect that you have made a lot of people much happier than they were before you came on air this morning. Greatly appreciate your ability to be able to look at what the international models are saying, sometimes go against the trend, but it's just valuable information from a gardening point of view, and we look forward to talking to you first Saturday of next month.
It's always a pleasure, John.
Thank you, Darren and Susan.